Hi, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from for this new episode of the RiseUp Radio. And today we have a very, very special guest with us today. His name is Joey Price. Joey, welcome to the show. I'm really excited for this conversation today.
Thanks for having me and Rise Up Radio community. I'm thrilled to be here and spend the next couple of minutes with you all today.
Awesome. So let's get into it, folks. Very brief introduction about myself. So I'm the founder and CEO of Risely. I hope you already know that. So Risely is an AI co-pilot for leadership development, but that's not the topic of discussion today. The topic of discussion is Joey and his expertise in the HR and the learning space. So, quick couple of lines about Joey, and I'm going to invite him to talk a little bit about himself. So Joey is an HR practitioner with almost 2 decades, or maybe over 2 decades of experience, and he's currently the CEO of Jumpstart HR, which is an award-winning HR consulting and HR technology analyst firm. So Joey has also been recognized as one of SHRM's top 30 HR professionals under 30. Am I right, Joey?
Yeah, that was before all the gray hair.
Right. And he is already, an author. He's already an author and he's published his book recently called The Power of HR. And Joey, we're eager to hear more about that. But on that note, may I invite you to talk a little bit about yourself, your journey, and just tell our audience a little bit about you.
Yeah, so man, this journey has been a very fortunate one for me. I started my undergraduate career in exercise science, and so I thought I was going to be an athletic trainer,
Mm-hmm.
travel the sports team, help them win trophies and championships. But somewhere along the lines, I realized that maybe I don't want to tape up athletes for the rest of my life. It's a great profession, but it just
Yeah.
wasn't what I wanted for my life. I wanted something where I could root in a community, build a family, and not be on the road as much.
Uh-huh. Right.
So I talked to some family members and friends and said, well, hey, what career can I have that's corporate, not so heavily involved in technology, not so heavily involved in finance, not so heavily involved in law, but has a combination of all those things because
Mm-hmm.
I do like to be mentally challenged with different sort of scenarios. And they said, Joey, you should think about HR. And I said, okay, that's great. What's HR?
Yeah.
And that for me started the journey about my junior year of aligning my education and my career pathways to be more intentionally in jobs like HR assistant, HR coordinator, getting my graduate degree in human resource management and development,
Mm-hmm.
having it all culminate to a point of deciding if I wanted to stay and work in corporate or become a consultant. And so in 2011 is when I launched my consulting practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have over 20 years of decades,
Okay.
20 years of experience. It's just very close. And
Yeah.
great, I've got the gray hairs as a result of it. But along the way, got married. I have two beautiful daughters, a beautiful
Nice.
wife, and two beautiful daughters. We picked up a dog along the way, and just last
Wow.
week, my daughter got a beta fish. So now we have
Oh.
a fish in the family. But yes, I published this book, The Power of HR: How to Make an
Mm-hmm.
Organizational Impact as a People Professional. And I've wrote it for mid to senior level HR professionals who
Mm-hmm.
just have had trouble connecting with the C-suite and
Yeah.
want better influence with their team.
Awesome. Well, Joey, what a journey. And, the topic of your book is exactly what we're going to focus on today, folks. All right. Uh,
Great.
when it comes to change, everyone looks towards the HR in organizations, right? And right now, if you look at it, we are in the midst of a very big change, which is AI. And it's frequently raising a lot of questions on job descriptions, productivity, performance, and everything then points to HR and more importantly, learning under HR, right? And are we doing enough? Are we not doing enough? How does learning entirely tie into business objectives and performance? That is all what we're going to discuss. But before that, Joey, I have a very, fundamental question with you or for you. You've worn multiple hats already in the workspace, right? You have been a consultant, you've been an entrepreneur, you have been a practitioner yourself, and now you're an author, right? What has been this journey like? Where did you start, and how has it been so far? Let's go into a little bit of depth and nuances, and take me through that
Sure.
transitions.
Sure. Just briefly, after college, my first experience in HR was this dual role of like office coordinator and HR assistant at
Mm,
an immigration law firm in the
mhm.
DC area.
Okay.
And that was my first taste of real life HR
Mm,
because prior to that, I had worked jobs at, the local pharmacy or at
mm,
the gym at my college.
yep.
I'm a musician, so I would play for different churches in my area.
Mm,
But that was my first experience in a corporate environment being HR. So
mm,
that was prepping resumes for man was reviewing payroll and timesheets to make sure that it was correct. It was understanding the law so that I would be able to update employee handbooks and
mm,
policies.
mm,
And the through line through that what I did many years ago to what I'm doing now, where I'm understanding the intersections we have with these technology advancements and the
mm,
role of an HR professional. The
mm,
through line of that is continuous learning.
mm,
It's understanding more about the context in which I sit, and
mhm,
nowadays it's more about the context that we as HR professionals sit and
mm,
how can I learn the skills and abilities to help impart wisdom onto this current generation of HR professionals
yep.
and the next generation of HR professionals? So
Mm,
learning has been a through line all throughout my career
mm,
because I wouldn't be able to accomplish new things if I didn't
mhm,
learn new skills. And
yep.
so would love to have a conversation with you about my
Awesome.
learning journey and how it relates to the work that you're doing and the values that the audience stands for.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Joy, you have been in this space for a very long time. And if I were to tell you that HR is typically, taken as a very, very transactional job and not a very strategic one in organizations, right? Would you take this perception as it is? Do you challenge it? Would you add on to it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and honestly, Ashish, I, I wouldn't be able to challenge that for several organizations
Mm,
because there are organizations out there that only operate at that transactional level for
mm,
HR.
mm,
It's onboarding paperwork for the new hire.
yeah.
It's passing out the performance evaluation templates to team members, and there's a calculation for pay increases,
Mm,
right? That's where a number of HR departments across the globe are functioning. But there's a call to greater. There's a call to be more strategic. There's a
mm,
call to be more innovative. There's a call to express more skills that you have to implement in the modern society.
mm,
As an example, when I was starting in my HR journey, I learned that there were very different realities. There was what I was
mm,
learning in school, and
mm.
then there was what they were
What's
actually
happening on the
doing.
ground? Yeah.
There were just very different realities. And then when I started to attend HR conferences, I
Yeah.
learned that there was way more to HR than I could have ever thought and imagined. So
Yeah.
much so that was my first interaction with full-time learning and development professionals who
Uh,
were under the umbrella of HR, but maybe they worked at a hospital system or they
yeah.
worked for a financial
Mm,
institution, and their job was just to
mm,
implement and critique the learning and development and training for the employees in the
mm,
organization to
mm.
advance organizational goals. And
Right.
so my journey, man, it's been very interesting, but again, the learning piece echoes all throughout
Stands
it.
out. Right.
Yeah, all throughout it.
Right. So now let's say that, as an HR, you want to become strategic, right? You want to become more business aligned, if I were to call it, right? What can you do? there's a lot of onus on ourselves, right, as HR professionals, that we need to become more strategic for the business, so that business starts recognizing that, hey, yes, this function is strategic,
Mm.
right? What can we do?
So, all right, she's I'm gonna workshop something here with you that I'm gonna
Hmm.
start incorporating into my keynotes. And do you watch comedies?
A lot of them, yeah,
Okay. Do you watch stand-up comedy?
yeah, I do.
Okay. So there seems to be this difference between stand-up comedians and us,
Hmm.
regular folks,
Hmm.
where like we have the same life experiences, but for some reason they find the humor and they're able to articulate the humor in it that makes us laugh. And the
Correct.
reason why we laugh is because it's like, haha, I experienced that too. I just didn't realize it was funny, right?
You find it relatable, yeah, and you don't
Yes, you
see the
find
funny
it.
side only when somebody tells you. Exactly, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. But it's because the comedian is looking through the lens of comedy and they're trying to
correct,
figure out how do I make this daily interaction or this mundane thing
yeah.
funny enough that it resonates with so many people.
Hmm.
Let's think about HR for a second.
Hmm.
Okay. If I just said the comedian sees the world through the lens of funny,
Hmm.
our professionals have to ask ourselves, do we see our job through the lens of transaction or do we see our job through the lens of strategy? Because the same things are happening to us
Yeah,
and we're contributing to the organization. But
correct,
if we're only worried about the transactional piece of it, we
right,
miss out on that great opportunity to be that strategic partner. And I
right,
would argue that it's not the detriment for the HR professional is not the experiences that they're having, but it's
yeah,
the way that they see them.
right.
And so strategy, if I had to distill it very quickly, is being that valued thought partner
Hmm.
to the executives to say, okay, we've identified where we want to go.
Hmm.
Here's the bridge that we need to build to get us there.
Yep,
And to develop your strategic focus, you've got to learn how to do
yep,
it. You've
yep,
got to see other scenarios and how they played
yep,
out for other organizations.
yep.
And you've got to be willing to think about like how is your team built? What are the strengths
Hmm.
of your organization? What are some of the deficiencies of your organization so that you can create the right strategy
Hmm.
within the context of your environment?
Yep,
So I know I just go back to the comedian because I listen to stand up all the time. It's
yeah,
always
yeah.
going while I'm working. But you've got to ask yourself when you're an HR pro, am I thinking transactionally or am I thinking strategically? And that will make a world of a difference.
Joey, what an analogy, man. I mean, my mind is blown. Well done, awesome. So
Thank you.
very
Yeah.
well explained. I think what you said made a lot of sense, right? Typically, if you compare two functions traditionally in organizations, one is HR and one is marketing, right? And I constantly keep giving this example that marketing has made that bridge of being a cost center to being a strategic center very successfully, right?
Mhm.
Whereas HR has not been able to do. I think they have started looking at that lens that, hey, how do we become more strategic, which is driving sales.
Mhm.
And I think HR has that role of driving performance and productivity in the organizations, and the more bigger aspect of strategic alignment and objective achievement in organizations, right? I think that's where the key is primarily.
Here's the thing, and this will sound a little controversial, but I promise it's not going to be bad.
Hmm.
Um, we as HR professionals have lost that part of our brains that thinks in capital.
Hmm.
So, before it was human resources or
Yep.
people ops,
Hmm.
it was human capital.
Yep.
And what that allowed HR and executives to do is have a shared language about benefit and ROI.
Hmm.
Because when we're speaking in terms of capital, we're
Hmm.
saying we hired this professional at $80,000.
Yep.
We equipped them with $3,000 worth of tools.
Hmm.
We sent them to $5,000 worth of training,
Yeah.
and they're able to produce a $500,000 of
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
We've lost that muscle or that muscle memory to think in terms of numbers
Mm-hmm.
and how they impact the business financially. And so
Mm-hmm.
if we were to get back to that while
Hmm.
still remaining people centric, while still treating people as the most important resource, I think we'll be able to make that bridge
Hmm.
of moving it
Hmm.
to more strategic.
Yeah.
And
Very interesting, Joey. Where did we lose that, as per you?
say that again?
Where did we lose that capital
Yeah,
calculation, right?
I think we lost it in our chase for an identity of being so human centric, right?
Hmm.
Many leading voices in HR will say lead with the heart, lead
Hmm.
with emotion,
Hmm.
lead with soft skills.
Which is
But
not
what we
wrong. Which is not wrong, but yeah, business side
they're
gets
not
stuck if
wrong.
you just focus on one thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, they're not wrong.
Hmm.
I often say that HR is often the emotional intelligence of the organization,
Correct.
and so we do need to lead with those things,
Hmm.
but we can't forget that capital
Hmm.
and finances are
Hmm.
metrics that are just as important to the COO as they are the CEO, as
Yeah.
they are the CFO. And
Hmm.
so we've got to be able to articulate the value that we bring
Hmm.
in terms of numbers, in
Yeah.
terms of
Right. And do you think
it's
that
a both and. It's a both and.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And do you think as a consequence, somewhere down the line, learning initiatives have taken a hit of this transition?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes. Yes. Learning has taken a hit. We don't have a full 4 hours to go into it, but I'll say, learning has taken a hit because if we are unable to communicate
Hmm.
what value we can expect to have
Yeah.
on the other side of a training, then we say, oh, training is not as essential because we can't put a number on why it's
Correct.
valuable.
Correct.
But we know if we have employees working on, PCs from 1996, you're going to get a different kind of output
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
if you have them on PCs from 2024, right?
Correct.
You can know that.
Yeah.
So we don't speak in terms of expected or anticipated ROI
Hmm.
for training. The other piece is that we have to do a good job of identifying skills gaps in our organization
Hmm.
and sending people to trainings that will specifically meet the skills gaps that
Hmm.
we've identified within our particular organization.
Yeah.
And so many times we will find that employees will self-select the training that they want to go to because maybe
Totally
it's a
useless,
them.
right?
Well, I won't say that it's useless,
Okay.
because we want our employees to have some sense of agency
Sure. Sure.
in their professional development, right?
Right.
But we want to be able to impress upon them, like, hey, um, project manager, we need you to get Scrum certified
Right.
before we work on like another public speaking course.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because yes, the public speaking course is great. You're going to be able to
It
present at
has to
conference.
feed into your job at the end,
Yes,
right? I mean, if your learning
yes.
is not making you better in your job, then it basically is dollars spent down the drain, in a sense, isn't it?
In many ways, yes. And that's where HR has to be that strategic partner to
Yep.
say, okay, we have these skill gaps in these departments.
Hmm.
Here are the individuals that we have on our organization, and we have worked with them to identify, if Ashish is a 5, he's in
Yep.
one area, he's probably gonna grow to a 7 or 8
Yep.
max. We can't
Yep.
expect him to go from 5 to 10
Correct.
without like some technological
Correct.
enhancement or AI
Correct.
to help bridge the
Correct.
gap, right? But we aren't having those conversations
Yep.
because HR is fighting fires that have less to do about strategy and more to do about some of the transactional things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a vicious cycle, man. It's a
Yeah.
vicious cycle.
Right. And it's interesting that you talk about skill gaps, Joey, because I think that's where, the entire discussion starts being strategic, right? Because for that to happen, you need to start looking at, hey, where is the organization heading towards? What are the organizational goals? And if we need to enable our workforce to head into that direction, then what are the skills needed and what do we have right now? And that's the inventory we have. And then hence the gap that we need to fulfill, right? And
Yeah.
that's, I would say, the biggest gap in organizations right now where learning is and where learning ought to be, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I told you I did my undergraduate studies in exercise science, and so I'm a
Yeah.
big sports fan.
Yeah.
And one thing you will find about sports, no matter the sport of interest to you, whether that's baseball, football, soccer, cricket, whatever,
Yeah.
each team has a strategy. They
Yeah.
have a preferred way that they want to win.
Hmm.
And so a general manager and a coach needs to recruit players who want to win in the way that the organization wants to perform.
Correct.
And where there are identified gaps, you have to coach people up or recruit the right talent for your program in the way that
Hmm.
your program wants to run.
Yep.
So, I always say, the keys to success at Bank of America are not the same as Wells Fargo,
That's
and
true.
the keys at, Mercy Hospital is not
Hmm.
the same as John Hopkins Hospital.
Correct.
So even within industries, leadership has a specific way that they want to win, and
Yeah.
you've got to hire and train people to win the way that you want to win.
Yeah. You know what? Your example just reminded me of this movie Moneyball, which is
Yes,
exactly, fitting into this example that you just gave.
exactly. Yes, you got it. Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So Joey, let's talk about AI a little bit, right? We know
Okay.
that learning has been a function which has, I'm gonna be a little controversial here, and I'm gonna say that learning has been a function that hasn't evolved technologically as fast as other functions have, or maybe other sub functions in HR has, right?
Mhm.
We're still stuck in either traditional ways of learning, which are either unscalable or ineffective in a lot of ways, right? But I think
Yep.
we are basically at a point where everything is changing rapidly, and learning is at the cusp of the biggest disruption it has seen, and that is AI. Because I
Yeah.
think AI can bring the personalization and the scale that is currently missing in the learning programs today.
Mhm.
What is your take on that?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that AI has a significant value that it can add to the uh, learning experience itself,
Yeah.
but also to identifying what do you need to learn to do, and then what do
Right.
you need to learn to manipulate for
Hmm.
or how to manipulate
Hmm.
technology to
Hmm.
accomplish a goal.
Hmm.
So I'll give an example. All right. So to your point, yes. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she has this new app on her tablet that I
Hmm.
got her. It's a tutoring app,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to mention their name because they don't
Yep.
pay me to mention their name, right? But she has this tutoring app,
Yep.
and the way it's designed is it assesses very quickly where my daughter's strengths and weaknesses are in this
Yeah.
in the math programs,
Yeah.
and then it constantly re-engineers the learning journey to make sure it meets her where she is.
Hmm.
So things where she excels, there's less of an emphasis on that. Things that
Hmm.
she needs to revisit, they'll go back and break down like
Hmm.
initial concepts and build
Hmm.
her back up so that she's strong.
Yeah.
So that's one way that AI can add value for custom learning
Hmm.
is having some intuition or intuitive feel based on user input of
Right.
what areas need to be reinforced so that
Correct.
the learner gets it.
Correct.
But then to the idea of learning in AI, more broadly speaking,
Right.
you know, there used to be a day, Ashish, where I would have to call up friends and say, "Hey, you've been to Chicago before.
Mhm.
What hotels do you recommend?"
Yeah.
But now I can use AI and technology to say, "Give me a list of hotels that are rated 4 stars or better by
Mhm.
people, and I want it to be in this particular distance from the airport."
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to look at AI as a valuable tool to
Mhm.
create reinforced learning journeys itself,
Mhm.
but also to identify what competencies do we no longer have to teach because AI can replicate those with precision and
Mhm.
accuracy. So it's a big conversation that we have to have because it's
That's
it's
true.
happening across many industries across the
That's
globe.
true. That's true. And it's not only, and you're absolutely right. It's not only in the HR function itself, but broadly, organizations need to open their minds and see how AI can actually boost productivity in so many different areas, right? It's not about
Yeah.
replacing jobs. It's about making the current jobs more effective and more productive, in a sense,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Awesome. So we are coming towards the end of our chat, Joey. Any passing thoughts, any last comments that you would like to give as an advice to budding HR professionals? Right? How can they become more strategic? On this note, I'm remembered a very recent conversation that I had with Kelly Dragovich, and she said that HR needs to become more stronger partners with businesses. Right? I think that has
Yeah.
been the theme of our discussion today as well, but any additional thoughts that you have as a pieces of advice would be great.
Yes, so she's definitely enjoyed my time here on Rise Up Radio, and I would say grab the book because it's going to be filled with affirming wisdom, inspiration, and practical advice to help you grow as an HR professional. Um, and to that end, do not stop growing, right? Even if you have mastered what you're doing in your job today, you have to understand that there's going to be a different way that we have to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whether that's because your job is growing and evolving, or you may find yourself wanting to transfer jobs and go somewhere else, and
Hmm.
they're going to have different tools that they're using or different ways of approaching HR challenges. So always continue learning, always
Yeah.
continue seeing how you can level up your skills, both your technical skills and your soft skills. So as you are rolling out training programs for others, don't forget to curate training programs for yourself. And
Awesome.
I hope that that will include my book, The Power of HR: How to Make an Organizational Impact as a People Professional.
Awesome. You know what? This reminds me of when you're sitting in the plane and they tell you, wear your mask before you help others. So it's the
That's
same way. You need to learn first before you can actually make others learn.
that is absolutely right. Yes, it helps you become a better champion for learning in your organization when you can say, "Hey,
Absolutely. If your mindset changes, then only you can change other mindset, right? In the
it,
organization.
that's
Awesome.
it."
Well, there you have it, folks. You know what we're going to do in the description. You'll find a link to Joey's book. Joey, do give us the link to your book. We're going to put it in the description so that people can find it at just one click. It was a fun chat. I had a ball. Thank you for coming. For this episode, and I'm sure our audience is going to love it.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. And for those who want to connect with me, we'll put a link to my LinkedIn as well. I love meeting new people and talking about HR topics. So looking forward to seeing you.
Awesome. There you have it, folks. You folks take care. Be safe. Till I see you next time in a new episode of the Rise Up Radio. Bye bye.